Guys, Steven here today, and today it's gonna be doing something a little different, which is gonna be like a docu-series documentation, like engineering manual, kind of like when you document your code for future purposes, and slash for my own sake, like a journal slash progress log slash don't lose your place and don't forget what the fuck you're actually about, what the fuck you're doing here, kind of like that Nipsey song. I almost forgot where I was at. Anyways, but the point is that I've recently found that like agriculture is like a mean way of creating insane levels of value immediately, drastically, and exponentially, not just for yourself in terms of like food, organic eating, controlled substances, controlled quality control, etc. In terms of even like income stream, if you're thinking about like farming, you know, and essentially creating new channels of trade, but also in terms of maybe your real estate, right? As far as bringing down the utility esque expenses, or even losses attributed to the capital changes, right? So if you've maybe been on the sting end of any recent caps, right? Cap changes, whether a loss or gain, right? And also specifically for those who are like accountant nitty-gritty's property task. So if you've read into like localities specifically tied to like sector or county, you'll notice that like the closer you are to trying to operate as a municipality, that is something that is operating in tandem with, if you want, the ambient flow that is, the better off you'll be, like wealth, health, etc., and like the city, the tax code, etc., just literally get like blesses you in perpetuity for that, right? So I've essentially did a quick recon, or I've been doing like a long, nice and drawn out recon of the area, lay of the land, and like, man, I'm just so glad to be here. Like, we're so blessed with so much. Not only do we have literally a like an aqueduct has a neighbor, but then like there's all these like side pockets and flow channels of water that are essential like residual aquifers, right? So mini ponds that are just forming up and are just tucked in this, like they say, tucked in the sack, just chilling, creeping away, that literally produce like infinite, like, if you want to call it, concentrations of minerals, of salts, of substances, of things that are detriment to like our well-being, our survival, and if you want, our infinite potential unleashed, right? So in that, I've kind of like been doing my own, if you want to call it, Bushman recon spec ops, kind of messing with things here and there. And this is essentially my foray into agriculture as like a viable multi-dimensional vehicle. I'll just leave it as loosely typed as that, just so like it'll allow you to really let your imagination run wild. And using this video, I guess, series, whatever, as a way to kind of show a glimpse of how I see nature when it's well cultivated, when we try to move with it, and the infinite possibilities that can come about. And I'm hoping to kind of capture that on video, right? Now, I guess this has been like about a month and a half in the making, so I'm kind of late in doing this. I think I want to say, so sometime like mid-February, I started noticing how like, oh shit, there's all this like unused square feet area. and this was just like looking at like along the fence, right? Because I noticed how like some parts of our fence were being really hit by the wind recently, where because of the lack of snow that would usually occur in the past, that would then be form into hail. The dryness caused, if you will, like a brittleness to form in the wood material itself. So if you think of like SpongeBob SquarePants, Mr. Plank, whereas what allows it to stay sturdy, that plank, is essentially free oxidation, free circulation of water. The lack of hydration, if you will, caused pores to form, which essentially led to like fungi kind of creep or saying hello at like really critical places in your plank, which essentially led to, if you just like literally tapped it, the brittleness or the breaking down of your wood, kind of like wet water or water to paper, right? Just like that. So in that, like, different parts of the fence have kind of just like worn down, and it made me think about, oh, actually, you know what, instead of like just replacing it, why not look at the root cause of it, right? If you're just gonna like take another piece of wood that's the exact same material and put it in the exact same angle, then you're essentially gonna just allow the same thing to occur. Why not just kind of like put on your scientific goggle and see if there's something to be learned from it, right? And it made me realize that like angles, and especially in this region, azimuth, as I mentioned a long time ago, matters more than anything else. The elevation of, if you want to call baseline plateau, to its relation with the sun, to its ratio, or if you want to put it, propensity to allow the moon, the full moon, to be seen around 6 o'clock, right? Really fucking mattered. And it literally, kind of like I was talking about in that Mastering Solar and Lunar Energies video, allowed these different properties and characteristics of energy to be seen and gleaned. One of them, for example, the fact that this fungus isn't eating through the plank per se, but rather allowing the more visible places of the plank to be more notable, as opposed to the non-sensitive, kind of like showing its heart, if you will, right? So in this, I was like, dude, I got real excited. Me and my mom have been talking about kind of growing stuff for the longest time, and I just decided to jump into it, right? So the preparation, if you will, was first to get a sense of, because I'm really weird and I'm fucking lazy, so I wanted to design a system, if you want. The vision is to create, if you want to call it, closed open circuit, whereas as opposed to me just running around the backyard and the front yard, watering the different sections, I can literally put my hose in one spot and it will hit everywhere. And that's literally what I am going to actualize, right? And in that also, I am mindful of air lines, I'm mindful of gas lines, gas ducts, I'm mindful of like oil leaks or any present, if you want to call it, natural resources at hand. Because if I were to take that out of the equation, then I wouldn't factor into my plan how oftentimes they are the cause that attracts what we call rodents or predators, things that essentially negatively affect crops and harvest, right? So that's literally my genus, if you want to put it that way. And so in that, there's a lot of like nuances that go into it. So as I was gonna say, if I could have like a feather or free-floating frictionless object that could just be colored, and I could just throw it somewhere and it would literally draw the different, if you want to call it, airwaves or the magnetic field or whatever lens of reality or sphere you want to put it at. And it just draws it for me like a circle, kind of like you're drawing your, what's that thing in geography where you draw lines and bigger lines and bigger lines and smaller lines? You know what I'm talking about. And so by that, you kind of get a sense of the field at hand, right? And so what I've been doing is old school, just letting the hose run and then seeing how a different pressure, holding the beak of the hose, for example, holding the end of the hose, adding a kink in there or not, how by affecting, if you want to call it, the end output flow of water on the ground, how that interacts with the soil at hand. And in that, I found that, like, again, super blessed. We have phenomenal soil. Like, the grass really blooms on both sides of the fence, on mine and on the other side. And the beauty of it is, like, there is like this like underlying neural network, if you, for lack of a better word, that is just there, present, ready to be used if you are willing to open yourself to it. That enables a consistent channeling, transporting, and facilitation of resources of water, grass, fertilizer, O2, carbon, nitrogen at times even, that is so fine-tuned that there's no way there's not a God. So it's been a beauty and a journey in and of itself to kind of go through this. Now at this moment, it is 4/19/22 at 19h50, so 1950, and I have essentially completed what I believe to be the first initial soft preliminary boundarization. That means that my goal is to essentially use as much of the natural ambience that is typically at play to my advantage, meaning I'm trying to be a minimalist, and all I'm trying to do is, like fucking the avatars, to add an air gust here and there to redirect a few things, so that, just as I mentioned, it is as if there's a rectangle within a circle, or a circle within a rectangle that bounds the entire region that is my green space, right? And so has, for example, change in composition of lunar to solar occurs, where you have this constriction that leads to this bounded heat phenomena, for example, in the summer occurs, as opposed to it being unfocused, the, if you want to call it, nucleosarization, that is the fact that it concentrates towards the center focal point of the region. The fact that that's true because of, I guess, the air gusting, the air channeling, and all these, I guess, subtle things, subtle changes to the ground that I've been doing over time, it will be as if there will be pushing upon itself, but as opposed to being unfocused, there will be channels that guide them towards a harmonization of themselves. And so once they meet, it's not so much of a collision, and if you want to call it unfocused movement of energy, which is essentially loss, the delta E that I mentioned, for example, in green energy. Rather, it will be kind of like planes flying by each other, and then the resulting, if you want to call it, clash when they hit the extremities on the opposite side, because it's bounded, will result in a up and then swivel over movement, if you want, of this heat, of this energy, causing it to kind of create the aforementioned closedness of the circuit that I mentioned earlier. So that's kind of what I was talking about. Love the fact that I got a cat, because like she's like detrimental and vital in this. Lucy's a fucking boss. Let's go say hello. Let's go say hello. What up, Lucy? Guest appearance. Yours truly. She just be chilling. Low-key sniping niggas off their fucking base without them even knowing. And the eyes and ears, kind of like my melandrews in Guild Wars, that I'll be gleaning from even hanging out with her will allow me to make more better informed decisions going forward, right? Two heads are always better than one. Or four titties. Better than, I don't know, I digress. But you get the point, right? Just synergization to the max. At this point, just wanting to note that water levels are fucking awesome. It's like I let the hose run, I think, all day a few days ago. And then before that, there was like a nice, like, sprinkly rain that came over. So I didn't even have to, like, water or do anything. And prior to that, I had already done a good bit of like the foreground work, where kind of like checking my angles, checking to see that like the network of planting that will occur is well meshed with the environment at hand, so that the neural network phenomenon that I mentioned can fully take place, and they can just like pollinate without me having to do a lot of the heavy work, right? Kind of like letting nature be nature, and then you just being the steward that just eats the berries. Kind of like a tastemaker of sorts. And also getting I guess a first preliminary check of my math. That is, do I have the ground gas lines correct? Do I have the ground electric lines correct? Do I have the ground water to air lines correct? And then, is it sound, right? I always say that. It's kind of like a check. Like, it's kind of like when I say, I always start everything by assuming that I'm 100% wrong. And then by that basis, I go forward, right? It's like a blanket check. So, and so far I was actually like 98.89% correct in most of the assumptions that I made. And that made me really fucking happy, because all of this was like by design in vision, right? Like I just had a vision of something. I just started like moving things around, and like this has literally been every single step of this unfolding of this project. And it's like unfathomably eerie to see how correct everything is. There can be no way that there is not a God. But it's cool too, because like even in like the way that I'm planning it, where like neighboring animals, neighboring plants all have a part in this, whereas there is no such thing as deterring predators, but just making sure that everyone is well satisfied, because they all bring a vital piece to the table, kind of like a King Arthur's approach to it. So that way that no one is ever dissatisfied. So that way that like naturalism at its essence really takes place, right? It wasn't this like aggressive, you're all that is, and you gotta fight for your own. But it was really just like a colloquial man world synergy, kind of like there's no way of saying Gaia at that time with the language at hand, so I just drew a picture using the most eloquent imagery that I could fathom or bring forth from my whiskey-addled brain. Right? And I'm just really excited to see what comes from it. So the next steps, I guess, is to actually start. Oh yeah, also on top of that, it was also cool to see that like parts that seemed dead, where there was like gray grass, if you will, or hay, where it's basically like it looks like there's like you're hitting the ground and there is no grass. Actually, they just like healed in 2 seconds. I literally put Miracle Grow directly onto, and it was just like I watered. I let the water seep in, and in like 2 seconds, it was fucking back to green. I was like, holy shit, dude. Round Rock doesn't know what it's got, or if it does, that's the place to be at, nigga. Fuck all you Austin shit. Which, by the way, is big city. So that was really, really awesome to see. Nitrous fertilizer for the win, as a side note. And then on top of that, another cool thing was to see just how malleable and open to the soil and the environment was. Like, it was just like open and accepting from the get. And that was the sentiment that I got from it. So the next steps, I'm just gonna keep watering. I actually had a test batch, like a piece of plant that I planted, and though my inexperience has kind of fumbled in the transplant, like I just took it from the pot soil was laying to digging a hole to putting in the ground, and in that process I kind of lost a good bit of the plant. Nevertheless, it actually took, like, surprisingly, it grew in like 5 days, which is rad. Like a super solid sign of healthy vegetation, right? And so my goal now is to just tactically start putting in plants in the permutation that I had already envisioned and anticipated to be beneficial to growth in the coming times, to essentially not just keep fostering this neural networkness, but also to show to, I guess, the local fauna, like the animals and stuff, that they really don't have to worry that, like, the bird will find its seed if it just comes and chirps instead of like beaking over and over, right? Tearing plants. And the bee will always find a place to roost and create its nest, because it will be so plenty and drunk on like making good honey, etc., etc. So I'm really excited about that. Hope this makes sense, and if it doesn't, just ask the question. Until next time. So for the sake of, I'm gonna plant this bad boy. Why? Because something tells me it's a good amplifier. I'll leave it at that. I put something in there. That was my first test. To be honest, as I said, I think I fucked up with a transplant, but something tells me it's actually still taking roots. So this is it right here. So what I'm gonna do is I'd like to create a bridge between this point, I guess this branch, if you can see it, this part as being a branch, that part as being another channel, and connecting that end area of the fucking lawn. I think there was actually a disconnect that occurred here. Maybe when the volcano essentially started cooling down and seeped over to this side, creating the mound for that particular, for what will come to be the backyard for that house, right? Since it's at an elevation. So in this, I'd like to kind of reopen that channel, and I marked my place. And to do that, I can use the old herbs. I think this would be a good location. Anyway, there's always, I don't know what in my head I was gonna say irises, but just flower. For the flowers with a high color tends to be a good source of water and soil, since they need, just think of what it needs to have not just enough energy to bloom, but also to have enough energy to produce so much vitality that you get this bright hue, right? Anyways, here it goes. So what I did the first time when I fucking did it by hand, I'm gonna use me a proper scuba. Out really well. There's a lot of different, I guess, philosophies and thoughts on this, where some people say it's only perfect if you put it all the way in the ground and cause it to essentially summon up more energy to shoot up. I'm more about the philosophy of the hot swap. So for my engineers, you know, hot swapping is essentially when you splice open a coaxial cable and you essentially take the positive and negative ends of another one that you're trying to mesh with, and you create your circuit, right? Minus to plus, plus to minus. That's what I'm about. I don't really give a damn about calculating the most effective calculus for root depth ratio, etc. I just want the mesh to occur as quickly as possible. What? Because once it meshes, it'll just tap into the network and it'll go to the depth necessary in order to get what it needs. But oftentimes, that's not what people think about. They don't even realize that their plant hasn't meshed properly. Once it meshes, I promise you, it'll build the fucking gateways and routes and everything. You just get out the way. Just let it do its thing. Just focus on ensuring that it sinks. That's really what I try to focus on. Probably gonna have to mow and do some light excavation, just because I want to essentially lay down some fertilizer all around this area. So if you notice that white spot, it's let's see, hold on, let me make sure I keep my pearls so I can find them. Okay, so you see that? It's a heart. Yeah, not bad job. Okay. So I like to say that as you're doing your spec ops, you want to make a distinct observation of places that I call oak tree grounds. Meaning, by you having sent something here different, which in reality, or if you think about it, taking a step back, is actually a pool of resources accumulating. You can think of it as nexuses, right? Like Nagato from Naruto, right? Nexuses are essentially points in your green zone where there is a clear accumulation of capital, resources, nutrients, minerals, water, even recycled material. Like, think of what would have gone to become a contaminant through the rejuvenation process of earth processes, right, have essentially been converted into other matters, organic matters that could be repurposed and reused, and thus actually essentially contributive to the redistribution of energy, right? It is neither lost, energy can neither can never be destroyed, only essentially moved around. Remember that law? So that's essentially that. And so this is one place, my guess being because the pool and the volcano, which I would take the gander to be, would have been right there eons ago, and the sheer change in depth or altitude of the leyland area, the region would have caused something to the sort of a mud shift that though would have created one pool over here, which I'm going to be connected by this amplifier, would have also created another nodal pathway somewhere along these lines, right? So concretely, if I do my shit right, I could literally feed the whole land just by this one spot. How do you say, well, I am the Avatar, the last airbender. You guys got something out of this. It's a good location. Could have found this little buddy. I'm gonna start, as I mentioned, I'm going with a OmniMind or OmniCulture approach to everything. And the basis is essentially that I am going to be taking a circular approach, if you want to put it that way. So going from what I assess to be the most focal points of resource and capital, building around there to essentially create bypasses or neural networks upon which offshoots can essentially spur from and essentially give to those that need, thereby facilitating cross-pollination, cross-use, cross-transmission, and overall optimum flow of growth in terms of bloom, in terms of vegetation. So if you think of a plant goes from a seed to a seedling to I guess a saplet, like when you first see the first greens come out of the cocoon, to when it later on grows to become, if you want to call it like a leaflet or a leaf, and then branching out. I kind of like overgeneralize this. There's a stem. Basically, there's a stem, then the branch, then the leaflets, and then there's if you want to call it, what's that? Fucking fractal pattern that then gets created, right? Life. So by that, if you want to call it, the circadian concept will enable me to bypass tremendous time lost in the avoidance of not just natural, you can call it vulnerabilities, like maybe seasonal migrationary patterns, or even the expansion or contraction of some of the wildlife, right, going from one place to another, etc., and cause perfect timing in their coming in contact with the vegetation, the flora and fauna, to essentially facilitate the dissemination of all that is necessary for a thing to grow, put simply, right? And then also selectively picking things that have, if you want to call it, radiantly complementing growth rates will allow the ease of this neural pathway to be created. So for starters, I don't know what the fuck she was thinking, but my mom thought of trying to pull out the fucking tomatoes, which is really kind of silly. I guess nice, I'll give it a pat on the back if you want to put it, but bad if you actually know what's up, right? Like it's May the 20th, I don't know, let's say 25th. And if you know anything about Texas weather, we have strong summers, so a lot happens in a short amount of time, and why preparation is of the utmost importance, right? Well, I spend all this spec ops work, watering, fucking airbending, etc., to ensure that I don't even have to rush. But basically, if you're putting your tomatoes in right now, you actually little to a head, you risk the chance of over swelling, just too much water in the branch and not enough not enough proliferation of the water to essentially pass the main tige and go down to the stem that essentially causes the fruit to ripen. And you will get either really, really like orange, reddish tomatoes or super green ones, right? So my plan is to actually do that at a later stage. But what I started instead, so the strategic location, or the choice she made was put it here. I'm like, bruh, no. What I'm gonna do instead is, there was this, I think it was a plant or something. So another, I'm guessing what was somewhat of a tree that was here a while ago. Move it over here, use that as a way to create a bypass, and then that will be used at a later time. I'm going to take this baby, which I believe is most likely something to the sort of one of these thorny looking things, which are going to be super fucking useful to neuralize, neural network my shit, create offshoot branches. I'm going to move that and bring it actually somewhere in the middle here. And what I'm going to do is put in my aloe veras, right? Your aloe veras, so the instruction says it's solid for, just think of your quick Band-Aid in warfare. If you don't have any Band-Aid, rub some aloe vera on you and it will literally suck up any juice fucking spewing out of that wound, and then dry it up and then fill it with all this super awesome anti-inflammatory agents, bacteria, enzymes that will cause it to seal it, heal, etc., etc. Rejuvenation occurs. I'm gonna plant it right here, especially with Texas being awesome, especially this region, as I mentioned, with water and sunlight, and take advantage of its slow growth cycle to essentially foster, I don't want to use the word chemicalization, but just think of an accelerator. What an accelerator does for a tech company, but the inverse of that. So I am going to take advantage of the fact that it has a slow root maturation stage to essentially allow it to, in the process of building those strong, deep underground roads, if you want to put it, réseau, to spurt the growth of the thorn guys, which are my little helpers all around this area, thereby causing a connection between this tree, that tree, that tree, and any other tree type pillars that are present here, right? Now, what that does is when the time to put in things like limes, things like cilantro, things like, I dare even say peppers or basils, they'll just have a whole bunch of guys and friends ready to help them, right? So that is, I guess you can call it plant number one. The amplifier, as I put it the other day, actually took really well. I was pretty fucking shocked. Actually, just really happy. Like, you know how they say, as Jim Rohn would say, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Like, and it's so fucking true. Cause, yo, like shit, it took to the fucking hilt. Remember, it's all about just meshing. You just want the meshing phenomenon to occur as quickly as possible. Don't give a fuck about anything else. But yeah, it's like literally growing already, and that's a wonderful sign of having done my calculus perfectly. So this area is really fucking active. Again, saying assumption being there being like a volcano or some sort of magmatic activity here, and that will be used for my big boys. So think of anything like a mango, think of anything like fig tree, think of anything like even strawberries, which are really fickle beasts because of their fickle nature when it comes to holding on to water or getting frosty too easily, right? That's that. I guess stay tuned for the next season, or find out what happens next on the next episode of Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z. Swag out. Oh, also, it pays to have pets. Lucy keeping it swaggy around here, giving me due psionic notice when I'm to out be doing something. And then this little girl kind of giving me an inner beat of the natural rhythm she's at, so I can stay tandem to how approximate to the rhythm that is circadian to the natural fluid, you can call it pace, of wildlife flux, I'll just put it, is, right? So when she's getting all rambunctious, I'm like, oh, she probably wants to actually go out. Like right now, she's really running around and sharpening her teeth and shit. So I'm like, ah, let's take her out. And oh, whatever you have. This is where I'm at doing this right now, and it's like at the perfect timing to be doing all this. As a side note, it's so cool. I can't wait to contribute to this bad boy. So my neighbor, some dope ass fucking fruit. I've been actually grabbing a few. They're so good, like really, really juicy, which kind of tells to how well this particular location is at not just stocking minerals, recycling waste. I want to put it in such a way because of wanting to give adherence and respect to the geoecological cleansing process that occurs through rain, hydration, quote unquote. What do you call it again? When evaporation and saturation, so cloudy mist. And it's just doing phenomenal, as you can tell by the color of this. I mean, I'm telling you, the juice is so there. So I've been like kind of doing grabbing sit reps, or taking sit reps by maintaining a pulse on how the produce is doing there. And in the process, have collected a few seeds that I either plan on planting at one corner of the garden, so maybe somewhere like over there, or on that side when I plan on creating like a node branch for my electrical engineer. So think KCL, KVL. Cheer! Are you feeling generous, sir? Or madam? Please donate to my seed bank. Yo, so if any of y'all are like into vape products and vaping, I just wanted to drop like a solid fucking tip on how to get the most out of your vape device, right? So, by the way, I'm getting into wholesale and distribution for vape products. So if you are in the market, feel free to drop a DM and I'll get you situated. But currently I am chiefing on this line called the UL Eglos, spelled AEGLOS. And one thing that I really like the most about this particular device is how it allows you to do what I call variability when it comes to producing the actual smoke. So to put simply, vaporization. So one of the things that I've noticed with vape products is that they don't really give you any control over what you're able to fucking do, right? They basically either control or micromanage the entire smoke experience for you, or they make it to where you are stuck with one particular draw type. So this is direct to lung or mouth to lung for some of y'all niggas who are, I guess, hip to the details, right? Now, the point that I wanted to make is if you're ever having trouble actually getting vape flavorization, meaning getting the actual scent, the smell, the taste of the particular vape juice you have at hand, then if you have a device like mine, what you want to think about is essentially it's literally like smoking weed, right? So when you first put torch to the bowl, what will happen is the fucking bud itself will spark off like immediately, right? So that means that at that point, the bud is still in a, if you want to call it, solid state of matter, and so the way in which it combusts is most likely going to be wholesome, right? Now, as you traverse or progress, or as time progresses and you're moving through your bowl, what will happen is because the bud has already combusted, it's going to change state of matter, right? Some parts of the bowl is gonna be in what I call dust, right? Or it's literally gonna be vaporized, or it's gonna be a state of matter that is more air than solid. But the reality is some other parts of the bud, the parts that have not yet been touched by the flame, will still be solid matter. This is why sometimes when people put flame to the bowl, they have issues when it comes to actually tasting the bud, because some parts of it, they're actually getting the flavors, other parts of it, they're actually inhaling dust, if you will, right? Now, as time progresses, what will eventually happen is that the bud will actually be combusted completely, meaning you would have essentially put flame to the bowl in every situation, or every, you can call it, place in space where the atomic structure of the bud itself is present in an organization that is essentially manifested as what we call solid state of matter. Put simply, the atoms are really close together, and so they are compact, essentially making for the appearance of what looks like a solid. Now, at some point, as I just mentioned, this will not be the case. Combustion would have taken place. You can think of the chemical reactions of NO and nitrogen and all that would have happened, making it change states of that matter. At that point, what literally happens is literally, if you put flame to that part, it will stay lit, right? Now, I want to bring this same concept back to vape products. When you first typically hit it, what will happen is the actual bit, it's a liquid, right? So the liquid will not have essentially been vaporized. When you press the button, the trigger chamber that essentially combusts and takes your liquid and then increases the overall temperature found in the tank itself to a temperature that reaches vaporization, you will then start producing that like flavor scented smoke that we want. But the reality is there are some parts of it that will essentially still be liquid matter, right? Funny enough, conversely, that's why sometimes you'll be smoking and then you'll taste liquid in your mouth. That's actually you sucking in some of the liquid, right? So the challenge in some vape products, or even designing a swaggy ass vape product, is ensuring that when you are vaporizing liquid, or when you're overall raising the temperature of the vape product, you're doing it in such a way that it actually quickly reaches the vaporization temperature, right? This is done if you have the UAEGLOS by raising the wattage, or if you have any vape products that allows you to change the wattage on your vape products itself. You raise the wattage to an extremely high wattage. That way voltage is pushed through the device, so that way the current, the overall, you can call it current draw in 1 unit of time when you trigger, or when you press the trigger button, is done in such a way to where there is a whole bunch of fucking electrical activity in the vape product. And so because there's a lot of electrical activity in the vape environment, the liquefaction turns into vaporization nearly atomically, right? So that's the first challenge. The second challenge, has clearly mentioned, it's to essentially design the vape product in such a way that there is compartmentalization between vaporizing the liquid and then ensuring that the liquid doesn't get sucked into your mouth. So those are two true primal mission objectives, if you will, when it comes to manufacturing a good vape product. Now, the third point that I wanted to make is that as you go through time, what will happen is the smoke that has already been created by vaporization will actually be trapped in the tank itself. So that means that there is a chance that essentially, as you are vaporizing your liquid tank, you'll actually be inhaling cold smoke. Now, what the fuck you're gonna say, what the fuck, why does this matter, right? Well, cold smoke, if you think about it, not only is a product of having extra inhale product ready to be consumed on hand that is not directly driven outside of the exhale or the inhale mouth. So it's product that you have created, that the vape product has manufactured, that is ready to be consumed, but has not been consumed because of the overall, you can call it quanta, that is inhaled in one draw, right? So this is another reason why, for example, diaphragmatic breathing is even awesome as you're going about vape product or inhaling or vaping. Again, to quickly bring it back, diaphragmatic breathing is done by imagining your belly to be a balloon. And every time you want to inhale, you push out your belly. Every time you want to exhale, you suck in your belly. So inhale, push out the belly, hold, 2, 4, 9. Exhale, you suck out the belly. So you suck it in, sorry. 1, 3, 2. Again, push out the belly for an inhale. 5, 7, and then you suck it in for an exhale. 3. And there you go. So that's the overall motion of implementing diaphragmatic breathing. And so what happens is, as you're inhaling or taking puffs, you actually push out your belly, inhaling oxygen, and actually, as you're doing it, mouth to the vape product, you can actually get way more fucking vape or smoke inside of your fucking body, right? Now, as I put it, because there is overall unconsumed smoke, you get cold air in the tank. Now, as you're getting hot air from the newly created vaporized liquid, these hot and cold smokes mesh together. And that's what I essentially refer to as the result of, you can call it smoke fecal matter. It's basically smoke that has a tendency of not having that complete juicification to it, where basically you're smoking and you don't get the same the palpable distinction that you get of the vape liquid. The flavor, etc., is not has fresh original smoke, right? Now you can clearly see, as I just described this, as time goes on, what will happen is a decrease in overall vape experience, because the more unconsumed vaporized smoke that is ready to be consumed but has not been, because the last puff, the last pull from the vape product did not take everything in, the more essentially there is an accumulation of cold smoke mingling together with the hot smoke that has just been produced. and overall causing for you not to get the complete vape taste in every puff smoke. So how to combat this, what I've come to realize is when I first initially make my first vape trigger, meaning the first time I press the button and I haven't used my vape product, I'm actually gonna start it at a high wattage, right? As I'm going through my vaping, the more puffs I do in like a short amount of time, I'll actually reach a point where I can see that because the ignition chamber, you can think of it as like every single time you press a trigger, you're essentially sending current into the overall vape environment, the vape product itself. But what do we know about current? Even though the reading might say there is no voltage, current takes a while to dissipate, right? So for my electrical technicians out there, this is why you're able to actually wear grounding material and not die every time you fuck with a line, because the actual insulation materials that prevent you from experiencing shock at a high, when you're essentially dealing with lines that have high current, high ampage, high voltage running through them, because the insulation material allows for what you can call the redirection of these forces to be done to a direction that is not impactful or not death inducing. Basically, it just, instead of it going directly to you, the insulative materials essentially redirect the flow of current to go to the ground, which essentially has a nullifying effect for most of the electromagnetic properties that we experience today. Because that occurs, you're essentially able to cause a little, you can call it somewhat of a delay between the stimulus that is the electrical force and you, essentially granting you the time to save your life, so to speak. So that's essentially how they work. Insulation is done by thickening the distance between you and the electrical object itself, causing for a delay in the response, which then allows the insulative material to redirect that flow of energy to the ground, allowing for grounding to take place. Now, to bring it back into vaping, because there's always current that is essentially ambiently present in the vape environment, what will happen is at some point you'll actually get an intuitive feel like, this thing is warm enough to where it actually is sensitive. So I don't need to keep pumping a whole bunch of wattage into the environment itself. I can actually lower the wattage. And so by essentially lowering the wattage, you're able to actually get more bang for your battery's buck and essentially prolong the lifetime of the battery itself and the time at which you can use your vape product. So that's the second thing I do. And then the third thing I do is I ensure that every time I inhale, I don't spit into it. Now you're like, what the fuck are you saying? I'm not spitting into my shit. Well, oftentimes we don't realize it, but saliva, like backwash, is actually an element that is introduced every time we put our mouth to the mouthpiece. And so because of that, we essentially add more water into the overall tank itself, causing for, you can call it like a inconsistency in the composition of the liquid that is at hand found in the vape tank itself, causing for an inconsistent smoke that is vaporized, causing for an inconsistent vape smoke even as it gets cold, and causing for a commingling of incomplete or non-desired factors that are overall meshed together as time goes on. So the main points are: start at a high wattage. Once you've reached homeostasis or stabilization point, decrease the wattage. And then the third point is always make sure that you try to wipe your mouth before every pull, so to speak. So that way you're not essentially wetting your bowl, right? So We hate when people either when you're smoking weed and you're passing the blunt around, niggas just be like putting their whole mouth on that shit. We hate that. So avoid this by essentially try to keeping your mouth or your lips dry before every inhale, and that will ensure that there is less bullshit that's added into your overall vape experience. And then the third thing and my point is, if I've explained this perfectly, this will actually, for those of you who are looking into making a solar panel investment, get a solid understanding of what's actually fucking happening. So, for those of you who don't know, Biden essentially, in the recent years, have created tax breakout that literally is providing capital for people who are interested in investing in green energies that have to do with improving the overall value of your property, right? So if you have real estate, you have a house, you have a warehouse, you have anything to the sort of a building, a home, and land, right? And you own all three facets. There are now breaks in the tax code itself that allow for capital to be disseminated, whether it's for the actual acquiral of the solar panel itself or even the upgrade of any form of green energy technologies that you may currently have. Now, the point that I wanted to make for solar panels specifically is it does optimization by essentially building or essentially adding what I call to simply be a capacitor in the system. So for engineers or electricians, electrical engineers, this will actually make a lot of sense. But basically what happens is, say for example, you want to light a room in your house, right? What will happen is there's essentially, you can call it a system that's like inside your home, typically closer to the HVAC, right? And the actual, even the water and gas lines, some people don't notice, but they all three interact together and they talk. Because oftentimes the sensors that have to do with the responses of particular events are meshed together in a nodal form, meaning they're connected in a grid, quite literally. So what happens is you say, hey, I want to turn on the light switch in my living room. And so basically what happens is something in there, the system essentially goes through these steps. Response for the living room has been received. Hey, I need to light the living room. And then the system says, okay, here's the energy you need to do that. And so it shoots it, it gives it to you, grants it. It takes power from, if you want to call it, the energy broker that is within your house, right? Some people, it's the generator. Some people get line, and the generator gets power from like the power line, the power service provider that they typically are with, OG&E, Encore, blah, 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 right? Texas Energy, whatever, right? And so that's essentially what happens. Now, the point of solar panels or adding solar panels is that every single time, well, let me actually take a quick step back. Every single time you pay the electric bill, you pay the energy bill, right? What happens is you're saying, hey, service provider, let us open or not only open a channel by which energy can be quickly disseminated from the energy house, right? So think of, you have a pond or a lake, right? And then what happens is you build a fat fucking wall right over that lake, and then kind of like building a trench, right? You build a trench right at the mouth of that lake, right when it essentially seeps into land, right? Wait one moment, please. So you build a trench right when it starts seeping into land, right? And then you say, okay, then once you build your trench, you add a fucking wheel to it, right? Oh, this wheel is semi-permeable, meaning there are holes and pores in. And so what happens is, as water slowly seeps through this wheel, the wheel turns. And that's essentially, that turning motion is connected to some form of pathway that essentially brokers or converts that rotation movement to something that can or is requiring energy, right? So another way that I put this is remember the robots in fucking Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball specifically, the Red Robin robots, right? How they had like those energy absorbers, I call it, that have this property of leaching energy from not anything in the environment, right? So they could actually literally cause for energy to literally suck in to them through these holes or sensors in their hands, right? The Android 17, 18, 16, that was literally the thing that made them so lethal. And so funny enough, if you think about it, that's literally just an inductor, right? So an inductor is just like it's what it does is has because of its whirling. You can think of a coil getting hot, basically. But so because of the way it's shaped, the way it's placed, has it gets hotter and hotter. Instead of winding onto itself, it just beams, like it radiates. And so that's essentially how energy is overall stored in the device. And then it releases it by just like reversing or inversing the radiation process. Put simply, I don't really want to get into it. But so these robots could essentially absorb ki, right? They could absorb chi, and that's essentially how they would fuck up our DBZ bros over and over by just taking their chi and not putting out any energy on their own, right? Now, in the same way, this is essentially how the pathway to the thing that actually houses the energy senses how much energy was produced and overall distributes it to other particular facets or parts of the system works in a power broker itself, right? So now you can see how, oh shit, when it rains, it's actually good for us. That means actually be paying less electricity. Quite an effect, that's why. And that's actually why oftentimes billing is done by usage, right? By a meter, kind of like a taxi, so to speak, right? Now, to bring it further, once that's done, once that system or circuit or relationship is in place, there is then a line that is extremely insulated that goes from the power service provider to your house. And now you have a direct communication. You can think of like the old school telephone days back of the days. Hence the word telegram. It was literally a direct line from where you were to where you're trying to reach to. Now the point is, every single time they send you power, they actually do it in like a huge block of, you can think of quanta. Like basically the best way that I would put this is just like your vape product. Meaning when you first turn it on, there's a huge amount of energy that is just burst into the system, into the line itself. Because for the first time, it's actually receiving power. It's actually turning on. The device, the vape product itself, is actually receiving voltage, wattage, and current, right? So what happens is the meter will shoot the fuck up. It will just rise and rise and rise. But what happens is once the line is established, once current is present, you'll actually see a stabilization occurring, meaning the wattage will actually drop because there's already a fuck ton of wattage in the system. And the current will actually drop as well because a lot of current is already present. My point is, if the current keeps rising and rising, what will happen is your shit will literally just blow out because current inherently makes things really, really hot. Like really, really, you know how like things that have high current get that sheen to them? It's because temperature is rising at a rapidly rate. You can think of things in terms of rate, velocity, and absolute position or distance. That's literally the main distinction between all of the things that are present in the electromagnetic world. The lens, better seen through the eye of rate, has it rapidly, or has time moves and how it reacts to it, or the thing seen through the lens in its absolute, you can call it reading, as it currently appears to me in the moment at hand, right? Now, to go further, because wattage and current, wattage inc or drop, because wattage drops and current drops, what essentially happens is there's a stabilization effect to the overall energy, you can call it relationship, that is between your power broker and your house, right? So then that means is you now get like a consistent amount of current power sent through the house, and essentially fluctuations have to do with either things that have occurred along the way, like a truck like had an accident or some shit, and like because the truck is like 2,000 pounds, the sheer vibrations of that object cause for that to be felt in the line itself, right? Or maybe like you just got a Tesla and like you're having to essentially consume more, right? So that's essentially what, or even like rain hit a particular part of our overall grid, and it was not properly insulated, right? Or someone did some stupid shit and like just kind of like fused out their particular network mesh, and because of that, remember, everything is always like together. It's like one synergy. The best way I explain this is Google tensegrity, Tensegrite. That the idea that the body is actually not like a set of compartmentalized units, but it's actually one holistic system. So if your foot hurts, it's most likely because maybe you're holding your shoulder wrong or your hip is out of balance. More on that later. I'm a massage therapist, so. Now, to bring it back to the idea of adding a solar panel, because you are essentially creating a device or inputting or adding a device to your overall system that allows you to essentially store energy on hand. Basically, you can think of it as, you know how Androids have that like absorption thing? Well, you're essentially installing one in your home. This absorption thing is fed by the energy of the sun itself, right? So as time goes on, it'll actually be storing energy that is directly from the sun, which on some level is actually cleaner energy than even sometimes the energy you're getting from your service broker. Because you have to think of all the things that the service broker himself have to do in order to decrease the temperature of the line that is the system in his home, right? He has to put them through all these inverters and etc. And then non-inverters and like regulators and maintainers and shit to ensure that the energy stays of sound use, that it's used. And then because of all these operations, sometimes the end product that you get is like, basically think of fecal electric matter. The same way you have fecal smoke matter, you can think of sometimes you're also getting fecal electric matter. And so because energy of the sun is direct, pure, organic, and literally just freshly consumed, it's actually a cleaner form of energy. Basically, the way I think about it is electron flow, electron like orbital levels, and then the overall arrangement that the electron itself takes at rest, right? So at rest, is it done in such a way that flux, where basically there's always one, two, or at most 3 electrons that are present and no more in one particular orbital level, thereby facilitating whether gaining or losing of the electron, causing for movement or what I call flux to occur a lot easier than one where that is not the case, and essentially you have to excite the electron itself, right, the atom itself, in order to get that going at jolt aspect of things and get things going, right? That's essentially why solar energy is on a buck for buck, cleaner form of energy, because the sun itself literally stays in a state of radiant flux where there's always a constant exchange of electrons. And so homeostasis isn't really a question. It's more of, what are you trying to do? Right? Now, to bring it back, when you are at this absorption system, what will happen is draw for draw, meaning again, as you turn on your thing, as you ask for power from the service line, from the service provider, the first time you'll ask for a lot, right? But then, as I mentioned, it'll decrease over time and then reach stabilize. The first time you ask for a lot, then it'll shoot up, right? Because there's a whole bunch of activity, and then it'll decrease because it'll fluctuate and then stabilize and decrease because a lot of electromagnetic activity is already in the system. In the same way, as you essentially use these systems, you are gathering more energy from the sun. What that means is if the specialist who's installed this hardware into your overall home mesh network, right? So remember, I said it's not just your HVAC, but it's also your gas lines, your water lines. Did you know that if keeping your garden watered is actually another swag hack way of actually decreasing your utility bills? You build a trench right when it starts seeping into land, right? And then you say, okay, then once you build your trench, you add a fucking wheel to it, right? This wheel is semi-permeable, meaning there are holes and pores in. And so what happens is, as water slowly seeps through this wheel, the wheel turns. And that's essentially, that turning motion is connected to some form of pathway that essentially brokers or converts that rotation movement to something that can or is requiring energy, right? So another way that I put this is, remember the robots in fucking Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball specifically, the Red Robin robots, right? How they had like those energy absorbers, I call it, that have this property of leaching energy from not anything in the environment, right? So they could actually literally cause for energy to literally suck in to them through these holes or sensors in their hands, right? The Android 17, 18, 16, that was literally the thing that made them so lethal. And so funny enough, if you think about it, that's literally just an inductor, right? So an inductor is just like, it's what it does is has because of its whirling, you can think of a coil getting hot basically, but so because of the way it's shaped, the way it's placed, it gets hotter and hotter. Instead of winding onto itself, it just beams, like it radiates. And so that's essentially how energy is overall stored in the device, and then it releases it by just like reversing or inversing the radiation process. Put simply, I don't really want to get into it, but so these robots could essentially absorb ki, right? They could absorb chi, and that's essentially how they would fuck up our DBZ bros over and over by just taking their chi and not putting out any energy on their own, right? Now, in the same way, this is essentially how the pathway to the thing that actually houses the energy senses how much energy was produced and overall distributes it to other particular facets or parts of the system works in a power broker itself, right? So now you can see how, oh shit, when it rains, it's actually good for us. That means actually be paying less electricity. Quite an effect, that's why. And that's actually why oftentimes billing is done by usage, right? By a meter, kind of like a taxi, so to speak, right? Now, to bring it further, once that's done, once that system or circuit or relationship is in place, There is then a line that is extremely insulated that goes from the power service provider to your house. And now you have a direct communication. You can think of like the old school telephone days back of the days. Hence the word telegram. It was literally a direct line from where you were to where you're trying to reach to. Now the point is, every single time they send you power, they actually do it in like a huge block of, you can think of quanta. Like basically, the best way that I would put this is just like your vape product. Meaning, when you first turn it on, there is a huge amount of energy that is just burst into the system, into the line itself. Because for the first time, it's actually receiving power. It's actually turning on. The device, the vape product itself, is actually receiving voltage, wattage, and current, right? So what happens is the meter will shoot the fuck up. It will just rise and rise and rise. But what happens is, once the line is established, once current is present, you'll actually see a stabilization occurring. Meaning the wattage will actually drop because there's already a fuck ton of wattage in the system. And the current will actually drop as well because a lot of current is already present. My point is, if the current keeps rising and rising, what will happen is your shit will literally just blow out. Because current inherently makes things really, really hot. Like really, really, you know how like things that have high current get that sheen to them? It's because temperature is rising at a rapidly rate. You can think of things in terms of rate, velocity, and absolute position or distance. That's literally the main distinction between all of the things that are present in the electromagnetic world. The lens, better seen through the eye of rate, has it rapidly, or has time moves and how it reacts to it, or the thing seen through the lens in its absolute, you can call it reading, has it currently appears to me in the moment at hand, right? Now to go further, because wattage and current, wattage because wattage drops and current drops, what essentially happens is there's a stabilization effect to the overall energy, you can call it relationship, that is between your power broker and your house, right? So then that means is you now get like a consistent amount of current power sent through the house, and essentially fluctuations have to do with either things that have occurred along the way, like a truck like had an accident or some shit, and like because the truck is like 2,000 pounds, the sheer vibrations of that object cause for that to be felt in the line itself, right? Or maybe like you just got a Tesla and like you're having to essentially consume more, right? So that's essentially what, or even like rain hit a particular part of our overall grid and it was not properly insulated, right? Or someone did some stupid shit and like just kind of like fused out their particular network mesh. And because of that, remember, everything is always like together. It's like one synergy. The best way I explain this is Google tensegrity, TENSEGRI. Yeah. So let's take a quick moment to do what I call a sit rep. So press the start button, view your heads up display, and point yourself to a mutually beneficial strategic direction. TLDR, on spawn, press the start button, view your heads up display, and take a gander at where you think enemy spawn is. If you are correct, my friend, you will get a kill. If you are incorrect, someone fucking dies. Now remember that this does not mean that creativity goes out the window. An army becomes invincible when there is a variety and variance in attack vectors, meaning by I approaching from the back, you approaching from the front, Ghost approaching from the west, and Price approaching from the east, we quite effectively take over the game, crushing down enemy possibility at launching any form of counter movement or maneuver. Swag mantra: how close am I to the center of the Tootsie Pop? So what I wanted to bring to mind today is this concept of rover, which is essentially my understanding of my way of essentially putting together what I believe to be the best way of moving together as a uniform platoon or unit. In order to best illustrate this, I always take the concept of a UAV, right? Of a basically a piece of technology. You can think of a bat, like, and essentially having control of the sonic emission ability of the bat to essentially not just find what is currently near and dear to it in terms of physical location, but more specifically its relation to a particular element, object, or place. This means that essentially, or to take the step back and kind of explain what happens, as a bat flies through the world, because it literally does not have the developed the developed visual senses necessary to completely see a picture, that is color, shape, essentially depth, what people has essentially deemed as geometry, right? Or even texture, right? So you can think of, for example, the attributes that are related to something hard like a piece of rock, right? Or even the luster, or you can call it light reflecting ability of a piece of metal or glass, right? It does not have those capacities in its visual senses. And so what its resort or has essentially evolved to do is literally sharpen its auditory senses to the point that, as if by breath, it is actually able to sense the vibration that its very breath makes, has the exhale of air exiting its lungs propagate through space and time, right? This essentially results in what people have defined or referred to as echo, right? The sense of whenever breath encounters some form of object that is not I, it literally bounces breath back onto the bat itself or onto space and time itself. In this way, in this facility, or I guess in this manner of being, it's able to essentially create a map, auditory driven or auditory drawn version of the world that allows it to essentially make decisions that have to do with going forward, holding position, making a strafe, like, so you can think of moving left or moving right, right? That's essentially how the idea of echolocation works. As you're going through the world, you essentially focus your awareness on a particular process of self that enables you to not just get a sense, a beat, a pulse on how you are going about moving through said world, but more specifically how this said world interacts or responds to your movement, right? Now, in this, you can essentially quickly see the calculus that evolves when it comes to the level of precision that one may have by navigating in this way, right? You don't just get a sense of how far things are, but you also even get a sense of the state of matter that a particular thing has, right? For example, solid or solid materials tend to essentially reflect things in a very direct way. Case in point, try punching a wall, right? You get an immediate feedback loop on the level of pain rising in your body at the point of contact that your fist makes with the wall, right? Another way of putting this is think of the very way that you go about refreshing or checking your timeline on Facebook, right? If you are pimping, as they like to say it, or meeting a girl, right? You just met some random girl and you guys just are hitting it off, right? The level at which you'll be checking in to see if a response from her is there is going to be significantly higher or greater than if you had no messages or no particular interaction that you are looking forward to on Facebook, right? In this same way, as a bat goes through time and space, the level at which it checks in on what's around it, how far things are around it, and more specifically, the way in which that particular thing responds to it is dramatically different and higher than any other form of living being, or even humans for that matter, and therefore lends to a greater level of accuracy when it comes to the sense of what it needs to do in order to approach or to move away from a particular element and object. Now, bringing it back to this concept of rover, oftentimes in combat situations, because of the unfolding of things, we tend to get spread out in one way or the other, right? Maybe a squad mate is going to take a particular strategic cover location in order to cover a blind spot angle that you may not even be aware of. But because he is privy to seeing that from his point of view, he is able to empower us in that way, right? And simultaneously. But remember that as things unfold, the level at which organization, and you can call it sound diplomatic maintenance of composure, decreases. Meaning because enemy might veer into one particular direction or the other, or because there might be one objective or another, you may very well find yourself being extremely far from your overall unit, and thus maybe even at a point where no support can be granted to you, right? To bring it back, this is essentially my solution to this. What I call rover is essentially the idea of micro sit reps as the situation unfolds. Another way that I'd like to bring this to mind is for those engineers of y'all who are familiar with the concept of Bluetooth technology, right? So the way Bluetooth works is it essentially emits a low frequency vibration that beyond a certain or particular level of wavelength cannot essentially operate. It can't function. It has a short distance to it, and because of that, the typical devices that emit or that are able to essentially create Bluetooth wave tend to essentially be really small, really short, and really compact. Again, as I say, let me say that again. Because of the shortwave shortwave property of Bluetooth waves, technologies that emit Bluetooth propagations tend to, at nature or by essence, be short, compact, and small. And essentially, you can think of it as short bursts of transmissions, right? This was essentially the concept behind Morse code. So for those of y'all who think like we invented shit, we really didn't. Like, shout out to your grandfathers and grandpa and grandma who had to fucking do this shit by just tapping the drum. But that's literally the basis of Bluetooth energy, right? You don't stray far from the point of emission, and because of that, you're able to essentially send laser focused laser beams at a particular direction. Now, to bring it back to Rover and how to overall effectively improve the performance of your unit, think of your unit has a circle, right? So for those of you who are familiar with Naruto and the three-man cell, what always happens is they even the way they go about training, they always do things in such a way that they're within what I call earshot of one another, right? Whenever earshot is essentially passed, then they switch to another mode of communication and an overall different method and level even of operation, right? The ninja himself will even employ strategies, attack vectors and techniques that essentially facilitate an independent or self-sufficient level of living, right? He's not gonna do shit that will either cause undue attention from him, because the philosophy is that you should be self-sufficient as an individual and equipped with enough power that you can essentially check an enemy movement in time for the remaining squadron and unit to come and provide support, right? So when I say Rover, I'm always thinking about, hey, every squadron should essentially be doing a check-in. If you are within the unit circle that is earshot distance, then you are of sound distance. And at that point, we can essentially say we are united and synergized in such a way that we can effectively move within combat distance of another. We can effectively cover one's blind spot. We can effectively cover incoming movement for snipers who can see shit, right? Or we can effectively even make note of key strategic value points that may be detrimental to increasing the overall success of our survival and elimination of the tango in the battle at hand, right? When you're outside of earshot distance, think of essentially the nearest squad mate that you can form you can call it a base for isosceles or equilateral triangle, and essentially run towards him in such a manner that you are providing support. That, in my opinion, is the surefire way of maintaining this sacred geometry that preserves swag combat mannerisms. Because I always tell people, it's not the fact that you sucked at shooting, or it's not the fact that you think someone is better at shooting than you, or not the fact that you think that someone has a better gun than you or is smarter, etc. It's the small little menial bullshit that, if executed upon on a day-to-day or moment-to-moment basis, increases or renders that 1% upgrade that over time make you a fucking superior fucking ninja. That's what makes a superior soldier. It's not him just being gifted with all these talents. It's literally the crossing your T's and dotting your I's. Are you walking crouched? Are you scoping your target every single time? Are you ensuring that you are within rover distance? Are you ensuring that whenever you are essentially moving into, or you're moving out of cover, you're doing it in such a way that it's logical, right? Like, you're not just doing stupid shit, like just putting yourself out there for the slaughter, but every single time you're moving outside of cover, there is a logical unfolding of you not just downing tango, but also already set to meet the next tango in line, right? The best way I always think of it is like, life is like one beautiful composition. And if you can be the DJ that essentially ensures that from the start of the night to the end of the night, there is a rising in activity level, not just like this huge jump, huge surge of energy, but then the next moment you're fucking drained. But there is a consistent output of energy done in such a way that you can essentially foster or play for the whole night, right? It's the same way in combat, like in fighting. Like, are you doing things in such a way that you can consistently be dangerous, right? I've been thinking about this recently, and like, I feel like if I were to tell something to a UFC soldier today, it'd be like, bro, like, don't not just drill down on the basics, but also fucking do what Goku did, which is learn to master the power you throw in one punch. That was the whole fucking, if you want to call it, saga behind the Kamehameha. He realized that, like, oh shit, like, even as he's intonating his attack, he could actually output energy that were greater or smaller than different stages of the Kamehameha, right? And so in that, he was able to gain greater mastery and even surpass Krillin, who was learning this technique at the same time as him at levels that Master Kami never thought possible, right? So like, everyone is always thinking about the knockout punch, but if you're just thinking about landing small, or what I call light to medium punches consistently on the button every time, you will without a doubt win the war, right? So think about that, and always ensure that you always have a way of ensuring that your six is covered, right? So I've covered this in the past on how this is why essentially we have two primal elements in an army: an offensive movement and a defensive movement. The offensive movement that moves the line, that essentially leads the charge, what they call the tip of the spear, but also a defensive movement that checks any form of movement that tries to sneak up on us, and also has the responsibility of safeguarding and maintaining control over what has already won. In that way, there is no way that superiority or gaining territory, maintaining it, assuming control, and establishing dominance on it, where in such a way that it pervades over decades and periods of time, is impossible. Hope you guys got something out of this, and as always, swag the fuck out. As a quick PS, let us remember also that as we play this game, we could always be making use of our time better, right? There's this practice called diaphragmatic breathing, which is simply employing the core, the Dan Tien has referred to in Eastern philosophy, to essentially gather more VO2, or if you want to put it, circulation, absorb more oxygen, and overall effectively improve and increase the level of transmission by which blood, nutrients, macros, and micros are traversed through the body. This is simply done by taking your belly, and every single time you want to inhale, pushing it out like a balloon. And every single time you want to exhale, sucking it in like if you're deflating it. Even though it might seem counterintuitive, the level of impact that one experiences when directly employing this method of breathing is felt immediately. When I first started doing this, I actually thought that I was suffocating, because what was happening was that I was actually experiencing VO2, which you could simply refer to as velocity-driven oxygenation. When I first started employing diaphragmatic breathing, I literally thought I was suffocating, because for the first time in my life, I was actually experiencing the sensation of receiving oxygen all the way into my lower small intestines. We have to remember that the large intestines, the intestines that comprise what I can literally simplify as our internal world, the bacterias, enzymes, and agents that are at the role or at the cause of essentially breaking down key nutrients, like when you essentially convert fat into carbohydrates that will then become ATP, right? Or when you go about the process of digesting any form of food, or even when you go about regulating the internal pH level of the overall system that is the body, are at a length that is way beyond even the span of one's shoulder. If I'm not mistaken, your intestines are essentially can go as long as 12 to 32 feet. This is why essentially they have that rounded shape to them and essentially stacked together like a set of burgers. In this, it is important to note that because of the way that life and society has evolved in today's day and age, conscious awareness of this fact is not present. And so it is up to one's personal responsibility to cultivate himself, reverse engineer his life, and ensure that he's always getting the most optimum amount of oxygen, even to the depth and shadows of that part of the arcane place of the body. Again, this is done by doing inhales by pushing out your belly, exhales by sucking it in. As counterintuitive as it may first originally present itself, it is, my friends, actually the way in which we are designed to breathe fully, completely, and to the totality of our maximum infinite potential. Hope you guys got something out of this, and as always, swag the fuck out. Maps on the fucking game that come or that do the job at essentially what I call putting into practice this concept of the azimuth, or azimuth. What the fuck is the azimuth? It's basically, the simplest way that I would put it is your relation, literally your geophysical relation to the sun, the moon, and where you are on the globe. Quite simply, it is basically one's absolute position between the North and the South Pole, right? For those of y'all who are into engineering, electrical engineering, who are into geopolitical, I don't want to use geopolitical science, but environmental science, right? My activist or whatever. This is essentially the characteristic that goes into defining magnetic fields, right? How one's literal physical body is used to, or how one's physical body essentially uses the natural properties of what I would just simply refer to as flux, electron flow, electron polarity, and the interaction of said electron charges with the natural world around them, right? That's literally the bare definition that I would get into with flux. There's a bit more that goes into it, and if you want a solid, if you want to call it picture or multi-dimensional representation of this, simply press your start button, view the map, and just be still for 5, 7, 11, 13 seconds, and you'll get a good picture of what I'm talking about. As you do this, you will see how the war zone, the combat situation essentially evolves. you'll see how at some point your mates are moving rapidly in one direction and the next they're not. You'll see them fucking die, right? You'll see Tango literally, quite literally pop up and then disappear on the map because niggas don't walk around with silencers, right? You'll see all this shit. And you can essentially say that this gives you a calculus as to what the fuck is going on, right? If you were ever curious as to how to go about actually cultivating what I call combat IQ, this is literally the best way or the one way to fucking do it. Just meditate on the situation at hand and just pay attention to like everything, even like the shit that you think is like trivial. Like, for example, I guarantee you 99% of you did not notice that the square at the top left corner of the screen actually gives you a north, south, east, and west direction. I guarantee you most of y'all completely missed that. And it's like one of the things that's been there just chilling in the background for like the longest time that no one even, most people don't even employ or utilize in their overall gameplays, right? Little things like that. I bet you most of y'all did not realize that on the right-hand side, as long with keeping a solid KD, like a solid record of your kill, death, and assist streak, the scoreboard also gives you a heads up of who's next to you, who is the next player that is a kill higher than yours, and then sometimes even it shows you who's the first player, like who is the one who has the most kills on the team. Why is this important? Well, if you're looking for what I call employing the buddy war system, then this gives you a solid idea of who to back up, right? Little shit like that. Little shit that if you're, as I put it, not present to the moment, you will completely miss. Now, going back to the AZIMUTH or azimuth, why is this important? Because if you realize just the bare truth or nature of how the physics of a weapon, how you go about building a weapon, then you'll realize that where I am on the globe actually has a higher, it has a greater factor to actually contributing whether or not I'm going to be accurate and precise. So quickly defining this, accuracy is actually hitting your target. Like when you scope someone in, you actually scope in a zone or a section in the screen that is pertaining to their body, therefore making it to where you actually hit them when the weapon is fired. Precision is like consistently hitting headshots, like consistently hitting a particularly denoted region of a target body area, right? Does that make sense? Okay. Now, the azimuth is important because if you understand that on the north side of the equator, right? So the globe, for those of y'all who don't know, there is this line called the equator line that essentially quite literally splits the globe in equal and opposite halves, right? And it does so by this concept of the magnetic poles. You can essentially say that there is such a place on the globe where quite effectively the magnetic fields in that region are essentially nullified or rendered to be not really a contributing factor to the overall system that are the fields present in that region, right? That's one way of putting it. There's a bit more that goes into it, but I would just leave it at that, right? Basically, at that region in the map, it's essentially not changing, right? Things do not really change on the magnetic level. Now, to bring it back to game speak, you have to always remember that even though things look stable, like you're walking, you're crouched, you're walking through a particular area, and it seems like if there's no change in altitude, right? Like the level at which the ground is raised from the floor, even though that might be the case, it's actually not. I mean, look at this picture right now. Their stairs literally denote a raise in altitude, right? What I want you to do is to every single time you see that, you essentially envision a raise in altitude to signify that you are getting closer to the sun, right? Closer to the sun means a raise in altitude. Further away from the sun means you are at a lower altitude. Now, why is this important? Well, let's simply go back to this concept that I brought up earlier of splitting the globe into two halves. Let's say that the upper half has this, what I call, root characteristic attitude, or root characteristic wave baseline of only wanting to remain cold, and particularly having, you can call it racist bias for getting hot, right? Let's say that the lower half has this root characteristic attitude of only wanting to remain hot and having a racist bias for essentially getting cold, right? So the top likes to get cold, the top likes to stay cold or get cold, and the bottom likes to stay hot or get hot, right? Now, linking it back to what I just mentioned, when you're closer to the sun, you're getting hotter, right? And when you're further away from the sun, you are getting colder. Now, let's do one quick thing. So, for those of you who have been paying attention, you'll notice that, like, when it comes to space travel and aeronautics, we have come a long, long way. In fact, one of the greatest technological advancement we have realized is the concept of essentially using combustion as a method of propelling oneself through space and time. As some of y'all know, when you the law of motion, meaning an object at rest stays at rest, a law in motion stays in motion until unless acted upon by another or external object, is quite literally seen in space-time extremely clearly, meaning you can just be floating forever onwards unless you find a way at the speed and force with the same magnitude that you essentially push yourself off initially. And because of that, it actually makes traveling or flying through space quite an interesting, you could put it an interesting journey, because the sense of it makes it to where you have to find other ways of steering, of turning, of increasing force or increasing speed and decreasing speed that you don't really have to deal with on Earth, right? Because of this, scientists have realized that the moment upon which we leave the atmosphere could actually be used, and then other key moments after that, like the moment when you could call it stabilization speed occurs, and some other key critical times in the launching of a space rocket, right? These are moments that could actually be capitalized as times when energy could essentially be repurposed, right? So think of it like when a space rocket launches from Earth, right? It first, like, just think of a giant, big-ass fucking small bomb, basically, right? That's what's happening. And then that bomb explosion, instead of just letting it expand like a mushroom cloud, is like funneled extremely focused, in like an extreme focused way into this chute, right? The chute now like conducts that explosion and to a particular point in the ground on space-time, to where now, as opposed to the explosion just like if you call it taking up x-axis space, just goes in a variety of multi-dimensional directions. So it's like a controlled explosion. And so now, because of that, we are essentially trying to ensure that it not only just does not go into the x-axis direction, but more specifically, it is focused towards an upwards y-axis movement, if you want to put it. That's essentially what lifts the rocket up, and boom, away we go, right? Now, as we leave the atmosphere, as we get closer to leaving Earth, there is also another rise in heat, right? Like, and why all of this essentially takes extreme amounts of energy, right? And so, as this occurs, literally sometimes parts of the rocket literally burn off, right? So scientists have realized that because of this, you could essentially capitalize on the fact that things are burning off, things are getting ripped apart, has a way of essentially repurposing extra, you can call it momentum energy that is created from the sheer aspect of carcass just peeling off the rocket to just create more things that the rocket can push off of and gain greater force, if you want to put it in magnitude, to push itself off and get more power and essentially cover greater distance as it travels through space and time. Because oil is expensive, right? So if we can just use the physics of the momentum created and the energy created at that moment, we can essentially save money on fuel, right? And it's quite funny enough, something that should be thought about when thinking about even the trajectory or the projectile trajectory of a bullet, right? Now, what the fuck do I mean by this? Well, as a bullet travels through space and time, it also most likely will pick up heat, right? An object stays in motion unless acted upon by another external force, right? This is why basically your bullet gets hot, because it's just encountering objects as it's flying through time. And the sheer force of it causes it to puncture through these objects. Nevertheless, though, there is still an exchange of energy, and that energy is typically manifested in the resulting raise in temperature. Now, to bring it back to this concept of azimuth, or basically realize that as a bullet reaches a higher temperature set point, there is a higher tendency that it's going to decrease in traveling distance, right? Now, it's pretty interesting then, because it's almost as if there is a relationship between what I call penetration or punching power and traveling distance that is created, right? So let me take a step back and explain what I'm saying. Imagine that your sniper rifle is not the sniper rifle you see right here, but because you don't have iron, you don't have steel, you don't have all the metals required to essentially forge that long ass fucking chamber that makes the sniper, you can call it mouth, right? Along with the chamber through which the bullet will essentially travel and exit your sniper rifle gun. All you have is a set of fucking PVC tubes, right? What do you fucking do? Well, in order to increase the length and reach of your essentially what will come to be a PVC made sniper rifle, is you define an absolute north, right? You take this long ass cylindrical PVC tube and you're like, okay, the bullet is gonna travel from here to here, right? So the place where it's gonna go to, that's your absolute north, right? It's heading that way. And then basically what you do is anytime you want to extend the length of your sniper rifle, you just bolt on a PVC tube with a smaller diameter to the original PVC tube in question, right? That's basically the definition of reach, right? And so what happens now is, with every subsequent PVC tube that's added, not only is the reach increased, but then also you have to think of error, right? Error is also added in that. Because what if, for example, the screw that I added at the end, basically you drill a hole in your PVC tube, you fit on a screw, and then you take a PVC tube with a smaller concentric diameter, and then you just tack those two things on together, right? Now, in doing this, what if you didn't grind down the screw that connected the two tubes together in such a way that it doesn't poke out, in such a way that it's not seeped into the overall, you can call it, chamber of where the bullet will be traveling through, right? That's one point of contention. That's literally one place where air can be added, because basically as the bullet exits the chamber, what will happen is it will bounce off of that fucking screw in question, right? And cause, if you want to call it, a trajectory path of your bullet to be skewed, right? The second thing is the bolting process itself, right? Like, imagine if the way that you go about bolting the two PVC tubes, so the original one and the inner PVC tube with a smaller concentric diameter, is done in such a way where it's not properly fastened on together. What will happen? Well, you will essentially have a loose weapon. Think of your burger. Imagine if the burger you got wasn't like a nice and pat down burger with like your tomatoes, your lettuce, your onions, they were nice and like packed down. But imagine if it was like this loose shit where your burger, your lettuce, your tomatoes were almost like they weren't properly I want to use the word packed down, but they weren't properly stacked on top of one another, and so shit was just falling all over the place, basically. Like, your tomato and your lettuce was just like sliding to one side or to the other. You can't even properly pick up the burger. That's essentially what you get when you have these situations, when you have PVC extenders that are not properly fastened onto one another. The result is you get a loose weapon. So you ever get those sniper rifles, for example, the SVD in Call of Duty Mobile, where basically you laser in a target, but you don't even hit it because the sight, the scope, the lens themselves are not fastened onto each other, causing an improper lasering in of the desired target, right? That's literally just basically things are not fastened and bolted onto each other. Another reason, another cause, or another problem that this causes is what I call tressaillement, which is literally translated to the stabilization instability. So whenever you're lasering in your sniper rifle, and the sniper rifle essentially moves around a little bit, because what's happening is the soldier essentially has to factor for the fact that like the reach of the sniper rifle is so long that at times gravity is essentially unevenly distributed. Now, how I verged onto this point may not actually be principally how I wanted to broach the topic of center of mass dynamics, right? Basically, just think of your car, right? Think of a well-balanced car. Think of a Tesla, for example, where from the get-go, everything was done. I don't know if y'all read Tesla X, but that's a really good book, by the way. The autobiography of Elon Musk. It's a really dope book. But basically what was done is from the get-go, he thought of things like center of mass, of essentially ensuring that the product evenly distributed gravity and the normal force, and dealt with the normal force in such a way that the weight that the car held was not particularly concentrated at one area, like the front wheels, like most trucks, or another area like the back mount, where the bed of some 4 and 5 wheelers, right, that we have in today's day and age. Like, he wanted to ensure that that didn't occur, because what would happen is it would cause a tipping in the hydraulic system of the car, right? So some of y'all wonder, why the fuck do I spend so much gas? Well, does your car lean the fuck over like a fat kid in some sneakers? Probably because of that. Like, literally, it's not even at rest when it comes to the balance. And then on top of that, you add all this extra padding and fat to make it what you think look nice. But in reality, all it does is it just fattens it even more again. And then it weighs it down. And then you're confused by the fact that, like, your motor engine has to like overcome all this extra physics. What the fuck? Like, literally makes no sense, right? So he thought of all these things, and so that's why it results in a superior product that not only distributes power, energy, and the physics of gravity evenly, but then also dollar per dollar, wattage per wattage, spends little to no energy output inefficiently, right? Now, bringing it back to the gun and the sniper rifle, this is essentially the concept of front-loaded weapons and back-loaded weapons, right? Some weapons, you essentially literally, no matter what you do, have to account for what I call the kick, right? When basically the bullet exits the chamber at like at a supremely high velocity, causing a jolt upwards or downwards depending on where you are in the globe. I will come back to this. And then essentially leading to a loss in or error in the overall accuracy of the weapon itself, right? Some weapons are backloaded, essentially resulting in what I call the tilt, which is essentially you're having to factor in its actual length, like the sniper rifle, causing you to actually aim downwards and sometimes or aim upwards, depending on the situation at hand, right? Now to bring it back to the azimuth, right, or the globe, basically the point that I'm trying to make is, as a bullet travels through time, these are the principal elements that literally lend to its traveling distance or its penetration power. The set point at which, at baseline, it rests at. Basically, how hot or cold is the bullet itself, right? The lower the bullet typically lends to the greater the traveling distance, right? And then the hotter the bullet will typically lend to the greater the penetration or punching power it will have. Just think of your shotguns to your sniper rifles. And then it also kind of gives you greater appreciation for why bullets are shaped the way they are, right? Like the very geometry of a bullet literally has tactical and strategic advantages that we should also pay attention to and take advantage of, right? Now, bringing it back and tying it to the overall course of a bullet trajectory, just think of, this is projectile trajectory for my physics. Just think of R cosine theta and R sine theta, right? The goal is to always ensure that for a weapon, R sine or R cosine theta remains true, meaning you're always trying to ensure that the x-axis is optimized and that the calculus for the y-axis is minimized, R sine theta. So for those of y'all who ever wondered, oh, I'm never going to use math, it's useless. Well, my friend, you shall be wrong, and this is how you are. Stay in school, niggas. Now, going further, when you think about, it also kind of helps you factor in just how to go about analyzing a weapon for error. Like, for example, ensuring that a bullet doesn't bounce around in the chamber before exiting the mouth of the gun, right? Like, because of the added screws that were formerly mentioned, right? Those are literal and concrete objective things that you can work on. Now, upon leaving the bullet, there's also a change in temperature, as quickly mentioned, or has mentioned previously, where as it travels through time, it will most likely pick up temperature. and then that will also lend to the overall distance that the bullet will travel itself, right? So you clearly can see the dichotomy or relationship between traveling distance and penetration power that is essentially caused by the velocity at which the bullet leaves the gun itself, right? So a bullet with a high velocity exit, you can say, may, if set with, or if built with a lower temperature set point, travel a greater distance, right? Or a bullet with a lower, or created with a lower temperature set point, but having an extremely small exit velocity may in fact travel a greater distance, right? Conversely, a bullet with a high temperature set point and essentially exiting or having an exit velocity that is extremely high will most likely not have a high traveling distance. And a bullet with a high, or built with a high temperature set point and essentially having a low temperature, or sorry, low exit velocity will most likely have a greater traveling distance and also a decent punching power or penetration distance, or sorry, punching power or traveling distance. So again, a bullet with a high temperature set point, or built with a high temperature set point, like a hot bullet, but also with a low exit velocity. So it has a high temperature set point, but it's exiting the gun at a low velocity, will have the greater chances of having a high traveling distance while simultaneously maintain high penetration power or punching power, right? Now, to translate this back into the azimuth, when you are at, recall the two halves, right? Like a globe, you split it in two using the equator. If you find yourself on the upper half, you have a region that is predominantly cold favoring. It loves the cold, and it dislike, or it's racist to the hot, to heat, to getting hot basically. And if you find yourself in the lower half, then you essentially find yourself in a region that loves the heat and adores getting hot and has a strong racist bias for getting cold, right? Now this means, to translate it back to game speak, that if you find yourself at some section of the map or the game where you're at a higher altitude, or as I put it simply, when you are closer to the sun, then this translates to being at the lower half of the equator, which conversely means that you are essentially factoring for the fact that you will be at a higher disadvantage when it comes to traveling distance, right? You will most likely essentially have a higher punching power or penetration power, right? Now, what this translates to is essentially there's a higher chance that your gun will kick up. It will literally rock up as you are blasting a target. And so it's actually conducive to the accuracy of your overall marksmanship capabilities to actually be scoping downwards, or scoping using a click that is factoring for upward mobility, if you want to put it that way. Like as you are firing your gun, the trajectory of your gun will actually be going upwards. And so start or laser in a lower section of the target, because you will most likely find yourself in an upward section by the end of your blast, right? Conversely, if you find yourself in the part of the map where you're at a lower altitude and thus further away from the sun, this translates to being on the upper half of the equator, and thus means that you essentially have to scope upwards, because you are factoring for the fact that you are most likely at a higher traveling distance advantage, but you are lacking an extremely high exit velocity. So essentially your bullet will travel further, but it will most likely not penetrate or have a high punching power. And therefore, all of your bullets will be flying essentially. So the idea... What you know about this, these kids don't even know. Back when we didn't have Pokemon to show you your digital badge, this is your real nature badge. Check it. Hey. One-handed. Just for you bitches.
Super Mario.
T.